Today's episode is supported by the Pittsburgh Book Fest, paging all readers. Book it to the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh in Oakland on Sunday, May 30th for the 5th annual Pittsburgh Book Fest. Created for book lovers by book lovers, this free event features programming for all ages. Hear from award-winning authors like Stephen Rowley, Catherine Newman, Daniel Kraus, John Scalzi, Meg Medina, and more. Learn more and register for free at pghbookfest.org.
Today's show is sponsored by Liberty Magic, Pittsburgh's premier speakeasy theater dedicated to the art of elevating magic. This time, they're bringing in a hometown magician, Paul Gertner, and his show, Steel City Miracles, is a love letter to growing up here in Pittsburgh. Each trick performed in the show is an original from Paul, and he's widely recognized as one of the best sleight-of-hand magicians in the world today. And if you want to ask Paul questions about magic or just want to get nebby about his favorite Pittsburgh sports, upgrade to the Skeleton Key VIP experience for seats in the 2 front rows and an exclusive meet and greet after the show. Steel City Miracles runs from May 21st to May 31st. Get your tickets at trustarts.org/magic before they disappear. This is CityCast Pittsburgh. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Mallory, what famous Pittsburgher would you choose as your write-in candidate?
Are we talking alive or dead? Because if it's dead, there's a clear answer.
Oh, I immediately assume dead.
Okay.
There's not a single living Pittsburgher that's like not running for office that like came to mind.
I mean, so it's probably like a basic B answer, but Fred Rogers.
Oh, I feel like he wouldn't want to be a politician, and you do kind of have to want it. And that's why he would be a good one. He did testify before Congress in like a really epic way. That's worth looking up if you haven't seen it.
And saved public media. Yeah.
Yeah. Could have used him a couple of years ago. I am really torn. I'm split between two. I would pick Rachel Carson or August Wilson because I feel like they would burn things down in a really fun way.
In the best possible way.
Yeah. Today is our primary election day here in Pittsburgh. I'm with executive producer Mallory Falk. If you have not, you can look up your registration status and your polling place to go vote today. We will put a link in our show notes.
Yes, and reminder that polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you're in line by 8 p.m., you can still vote. I think this is going to be a sleepier election. I don't know that we're going to see like lines where people aren't in casting their ballots by 8, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's mostly for presidentials, but these do matter. I mean, these kinds of primary elections are where you see who comes up in the November ballot, and every single House member in Pennsylvania is up for election. It may or may not be contested. You have to look that up. But it's still worth knowing who's going to be there.
And if you're voting by mail, obviously too late to drop it in the mail today. It's got to be received by the county elections office by 8 p.m. on election day. We'll have a link in our show notes where you can look at where you can like drop a ballot if you are a little delayed and haven't gotten it in the mail yet.
I have definitely had to hand deliver my ballot on an election day before, but it's important. It's worth doing. And one thing that we wanted to talk about this cycle is, we talked a little bit about the election on our Friday show. And then we heard from folks, they're like, wait a second, this ballot question, I'm still confused. So we thought it was worth backing up and being like, all right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this ballot question, because it's the one thing that every single primary voter can participate in this year. We talk about this a lot. Like, we have a closed election system here in Pennsylvania. I hate it, but it means that you have to be a registered Republican or a registered Democrat to cast a ballot in the primary for most things. But when we have ballot questions, that's not true. Everyone can participate in that.
This ballot question, I don't think has gotten like a ton of coverage or attention.
Which is hilarious considering it has to do with media, and media have not talked about it enough.
But so if you want to understand what you were being asked when you go to your polling place today, we want to just break this down for you a little bit more.
Yes. And actually, I did a hair more research on this than Mallory here, although we did share the burden. So Mallory, you're going to play Question Asker. You are our host now. I am passing the baton.
Yes, Megan, you are going to help me understand what's on my own ballot. I very much appreciate it.
It's really fun to present stuff to your boss in real time in public.
All right, let's see how well you do. I know you're going to do great. So, I mean, the first question I think everyone would want to know is like, what at its core is this question that people will see on their ballots asking?
Yeah. And I'm going to do my very best to use like careful language here because I truly don't want to editorialize or anything. Like, I do know how I would vote for this, but I don't like y'all make your own decisions, truly. So if it feels like I'm writing too hard one way or the other, please know that I'm really trying not to and like stay in the middle here. The language is very formal, as most things are with elections and ballot questions. But at its core, I think it's asking like if Pittsburgh loses print newspapers permanently, if they're gone, should the city be allowed to post some public hearing notices online instead? Like, is there another option?
And backing up, I think it's helpful to understand like how posting these notices works right now to understand what the change would be.
Right. So local governments, all of them, our state, our county, our city, they're required to give the public advance notice before taking final action on different types of things. That can be like when they gather to talk about a thing. It can be when they gather to vote about a thing. And there's different rules for each one of them. What we're talking about is just the city of Pittsburgh. So just Pittsburgh voters. And what the city is suggesting is changing a few of these rules. Interestingly to me, not all of them. So what is on the table here is things like tax and salary changes, budget adjustments, zoning and land use planning, the creation of new city agencies. So when they'd be taking a final vote on any of these, instead of having to give it to a newspaper to put the public notice in, they would have another option. And I think for most of those, they have to be published for at least 10 days, but there's different timing rules for different types of things.
So kind of giving people a heads up that this vote is happening in case they want to have an opportunity to weigh in.
Correct. But once again, I would just emphasize it can be incredibly formal language, even for public hearing notices. Like if you're not used to reading these things, it reads a little bit like city council legislation itself, which is not the easiest to understand. So no matter where these things ultimately land, they are currently in newspapers. There's a proposal to change that. They're still not that easy to read. That's why newspapers or reporters generally are so important. You need them regardless of this.
This isn't like spreading open the Weekend Times to read the wedding announcements, for example.
No. Those are the divorce notices, the wedding announcements, especially if you've ever had like a hometown newspaper where they put everything in. It's not like that. It's not that easy to read. Today's episode is brought to you by Steal Hers Social, presented by UPMC Magee Women's Hospital. Y'all know, if you listen to the show, I am a huge sports fan. I am always down to chat with women who love football, who love the Steelers, just because, first of all, y'all have such strong opinions and you make them heard in male-dominated spaces. So if you're looking for that kind of community, mark your calendars for Steal Hers Social on May 28th. It's taking place at, of course, Acrisure Stadium, and you'll get the chance to peek into the locker room and run through the player tunnel, get access to all these behind-the-scenes spaces. There's even a player meet and greet and an opportunity to hear from women in sports. They've got raffles, giveaways, face painting, bingo. If you like to get crafty, make sure you stop by that button and bracelet making station. The event is open to women and girls of all ages, and as a CityCast listener, you get a $5 discount on the $55 ticket. Use code CITY, C-I-T-Y, and buy your tickets now at universe.com/stealhers. That's steal, H-E-R-S. Today's episode is supported by the Frick Museum and Gardens. You know, you can't talk about Pittsburgh history without considering steel magnates like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Clay Frick. And whether you are a history buff or just starting to explore this era, visiting the Frick Mansion, aka Clayton, is a great way to really see some of those stories up close. The Frick's Gilded, Not Golden tour takes you into Clayton House and back to 1892, which is the year of the Homestead Riot, an assassination attempt on Henry Clay Frick himself, and the year that the Frick family was mourning the loss of 2 children. The tour really digs in to topics like wealth, inequality, labor, and so much more. And even if you've been before, Gilded Not Golden is great, and their tours are really special. Each one gets updated to highlight new bits of the house that maybe you hadn't even thought of before. Plus, late spring and early summer are the perfect time to visit Clayton because after your tour, you can wander the grounds, really take in nature. It's such a beautiful space, and when it's freezing outside, sometimes you may be rushing from A to B. No need to do that right now. You can sip on an iced drink from the cafe and check out all that's special about Clayton in Pittsburgh's East End. Tours of Clayton run Tuesday through Sundays. Get tour tickets and learn more at thefrickpittsburgh.org.
So, I mean, let's talk about why this proposal is happening now. I think anyone who's been following the local media landscape recently might be able to wager a guess, but talk a little bit about the timing here.
You think it's obvious? Yes. If you are familiar with what's been happening in Pittsburgh for checks notes the last 6 months, all of it comes down to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And I think City Paper, too, the fact that those two were both either closed or scheduled to close within 8 days of each other back in January. When the Block family said that was going to happen, it had a huge ripple effect. And I think a lot of us are aware of pieces of that. We talked about the jobs and the human beings and the reporting and storytelling that gets lost when things have to decline. But I think this is another one. This is a different tentacle that does have a kind of an outsized impact. So as of mid-January, the Post-Gazette was supposed to close in May. The Trib had stopped printing. I feel like the Trib doesn't talk about the fact that it did have a print newspaper forever, as they've been launching the Saturday edition, which is great. But at that moment, as of mid-January, they hadn't printed a newspaper in Pittsburgh since 2018. So it had been a while. And then you have the New Pittsburgh Courier, which does have a print edition, but with so much respect for its incredible national legacy, I don't know that you could argue in its current form that it qualifies as a paper of wide circulation, which is part and parcel to this language. It has to be a large newspaper that is widely circulated. That's pivotal to the language. So in that moment, in January, council was like, oh, okay, well, if the papers are all gone, and there's nothing left to put the public notices in, we need a backup plan. We need to do things. Now, obviously, things have changed. The Trib is printing again. They have this Saturday paper. The Peachy is still around. They print 2 days a week. The New Pittsburgh Courier, still doing its thing. But council decided they were already on this path. It had already made it to ballot measure status. We're just going to keep it. And supporters say that that's what it is now. It is a backup plan so that there is something that will happen if the city needs to legally notify the public per the rules of our charter, but there are no newspapers with which to do it.
Yeah, which seems kind of straightforward. Why would you not just want to have this backup option in case at some point in the future there is no widely circulated, regularly printed paper? But walk me through the arguments for and against, because I think as with many ballot measures, it's more nuanced than you might think at first.
Yeah, I'll grant you, I think it has the tone of being somewhat straightforward. The big one, the big reason for is flexibility, big what if energy. It keeps the city in compliance no matter what, which from the city's perspective, I get. The arguments against, I think, are a little more in the weeds, but we're going to walk through them. So one thing is it carves out something different for some city offices and notices than what the rest of the city is required to do. So even within one jurisdiction, just the city of Pittsburgh, it changes the rules for some things, but not for everything. Which
Why?
I don't know. Detractors say is unnecessary and confusing, even within office to office, right? So that's number one. Along those same lines, it also means that the city of Pittsburgh, some of their offices, will be following different rules than the county and the rest of Pennsylvania, because there's a rule in the state of Pennsylvania about how to do this. Again, critics say that is just confusing. Why would you carve something out that's different just for this thing? Because remember, this amendment, the ballot question, would only change the rules in Pittsburgh's charter. It would not change state law. It also sets a precedent here that I think people in the news industry or people that study it are worried that others might follow. You've lived here forever, Mallory. I feel like when something happens in Pennsylvania, sometimes a county looks over and they're like, I don't know, I could do that. Yeah. Maybe I'll think about it.
Currently, what our county is thinking they might do with paid parental leave, for example.
Yes. Sometimes it is fantastic. It's a great idea. Sometimes, I don't even know if I would say this is not fantastic. It's just sometimes you have to think deeply about the impact that could have. Like maybe it's not big here in the city of Pittsburgh or in Philly or Erie or Greensburg, where there is a more robust press. But for some little communities where they have one newspaper and that one's just struggling to be around, like this represents a not small amount of income. So the city and the county don't just get to put these notices in these papers for free. It's considered a form of advertising. The reason the media industry is declining is because no one wants to pay for news. What we do for a living, Mallory, is highly undervalued. I'm sure that's not a shock to you.
Can't say it is.
But with fewer advertisers overall, people are able to get their news other places. People not wanting to pay for subscriptions. I mean, that's why we love doing what we do, because we get to give it to you for free. But like, that's not a thing at newspapers. You have to pay for it. And then you also take away income in the form of public notices from city and county governments and state governments. Like, that's a lot. Here in the city of Pittsburgh, anecdotally, I heard one figure that was like $250,000 just for a handful of public notices within one body of government. I won't say which because I feel like it's not, I can't independently fact check that, but I do think it gives you a sense of it. It can range, we'll say it that way, from tens of thousands of dollars, certainly annually, to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that is what keeps the press in place. Like you can have mixed feelings about that, but if you want a robust news system in your community, it has to come from somewhere. And so far, public notices have been one of the few places left to be able to count on income. And if you change that in Pittsburgh, maybe it has a ripple effect in Philly. Maybe all these smaller communities do it too. You will see a continued decline. And that's hard for me personally, as someone who like lives it to swallow.
And just to make things clear, here in Pittsburgh, there have been plenty of outlets that are still operating without getting paid for these public notices, because traditionally, like the Post-Gazette has carried the majority of those notices. But in other communities, this might be what's propping up like the one existing paper there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something interesting that I heard too is that my understanding is this specific ballot measure here in Pittsburgh would allow these city agencies to post a notice in an online news outlet or on their own site. And I've seen some criticism of that. If you really want this to be independent, you don't want this to be something that like the city itself is responsible for
doing on their own. Yeah. The ones I just went through, those are the ones that I have heard from friends directly in the industry or people who watch it very closely, people in city and county government who are kind of watching this play out. WESA talked to Melissa Maluski, I hope I'm saying that right, from the Pennsylvania News Media Association. She had some other examples that I thought were interesting. So first and foremost, the city could face legal challenges if the rules conflict with state requirements. I have not checked that out. I'm curious whether she's correct. We've laughed on this show before because sometimes city council passes things and then they can't stand up in court. We'll see if that is the case here. Another one is what you just kind of touched on, Mallory, that notices that are posted directly, like from the city onto the city's website, can be perceived as less independent than notices that have to be published through a third-party outlet. I genuinely don't know that it makes it less of what it is. Like I think most of the time, because of the language of these things, it's taken from the government office. If the wording is changed, it is so I don't think the wording is changed. And it goes to a news outlet and they publish it kind of verbatim. I don't know that that's true, but I understand the perception piece of it. And then the other main argument is that, like, why do you need this as a backup plan? Like, the Post-Gazette is still here. The Trib is still here. The New Pittsburgh Courier is still here. You don't need this. You don't need to proceed in this moment. And I don't know that she's wrong.
Yeah, we keep harping on this idea that Pittsburgh is not a news desert, despite some of the coverage we've seen, not a news desert.
40 plus news outlets. There are plenty to choose from. And part of why I like being at CityCast Pittsburgh is because we get to link to all of them. CityCast Pittsburgh is sponsored today by Window Nation. Summer is just around the corner, and I don't know about y'all, but I reserve my love of heat for Bloomfield Beach. Once I am home, I want that sweet, sweet AC. Keeping an air conditioner running can be a big expense, especially if you've got old windows in an old Pittsburgh house. You don't have to live that way. Check out Window Nation's Buy 4 Windows, Get 4 Free sale going on right now. So replace all the windows in your house and get half of them for free. Window Nation says they custom build their products so the windows will fit your space perfectly. Plus, you'll get your choice of over 1,500 styles and colors. And the windows come with a lifetime warranty. And they swear by the installation that it all goes down in 1 day or less. The sale ends soon, so consider putting an end to your window problems. Schedule a fast, free consultation now at windownation.com.
Let's get into the actual language. What exactly will people see on their ballots?
Yes. So the actual text, once again, bit wonky. Shall the City of Pittsburgh Home Rule Charter Article 3 Legislative Branch be amended by changing public hearing notice requirements to adjust for public hearing notice requirements in light of changes in the public consumption of newspapers of general circulation and increased use of digital media? ?
So that's what you're going to see. Yes. Just to reiterate, what does a vote yes mean here?
A yes vote means that you want to give the city flexibility to use online notices for certain types of announcements if local newspapers ever disappear. So again, this goes back to that these words are doing some heavy lifting. If there's no newspaper of general circulation, a big newspaper, Pittsburgh could publish its notices instead through successor media. So that could mean the city website or a digital news outlet. We're considered a digital news outlet. Public Source is a digital news outlet. There are lots and lots of options if they decide to go that route.
And then what does a no vote mean?
A no vote means that they want to keep the current requirement. Nothing changes, that they still publish these notices in a newspaper. And I would argue that that's a bit closer to being in line with what the state of Pennsylvania has wanted up to this point. And actually, to that effect, I think it's worth backing up to that state level because our legislature has been talking about this too. Like media changes, evolution is not a new concept. And I think the state of Pennsylvania wisely has been thinking about it for a minute. They've been considering making some kind of change happen statewide. So I think that's another piece to this is that we could get a new mandate at the state level. So why jump when you don't have to yet at the city level until you know how this is going to play out at the state? All of that said, I don't actually know how this one's sitting right now because it's been like it's been making its way slowly through things. So Mallory, you actually looked into this one.
Yeah, exactly. And so my understanding of this bill, it would let local governments and school districts post notices online or in free local newspapers, which is different than the Pittsburgh one. So for example, I imagine that would open things up to an outlet like City Paper, which is going to start printing again. But
that's true. City Paper is coming back. I think they're going to be monthly to start. But still, like that will be another paper that we can count on.
And I have not read the fine print to when they say like a free local newspaper doesn't need to be printing with a certain regularity for it to be like eligible for this. I don't know.
Yeah. And right now there's no frequency requirement. It's of general circulation. So that's something to keep in your back pocket too.
Yeah. So, as far as I can tell, this bill that's currently in the state house doesn't include the option to let governments post notices on their own website. So again, that's like a difference from the one that Pittsburgh is considering.
Which I'm sure the city would love to have those savings. Like that is part of it. Like it does cost money to advertise in newspapers. But do we want to continue to erode what funds news in our communities?
Well, and the other argument I've heard besides this question about like how independent is it if it's on a government website is also like it's just making it harder for people to find. Like how many everyday people are like scrolling through government websites to find these notices. Though I guess I do also wonder how many people are like flipping through the PG to find them. But there is a difference between something that's like potentially buried on a government site versus in print circulation.
In a regular place every single time you open a print newspaper. I'm with you. And I do think like there's this piece of like, well, if that information isn't getting to somebody because they'd never buy a newspaper, what good is it doing? The Post-Gazette and others do, when you get a public notice, you put it on your website as well. So it already exists on a website. This would just be like switching it over to the cities, which not for nothing. The city website stinks. It is terrible. Every link is broken. They redid it a couple of years ago and they made it so much worse.
But so anyway, the state, I think, is not giving governments that option, but the city version would be of putting it on their own site. It's unclear to me how far this is going to go in the House, but it is something that is under consideration. So I guess Pittsburgh, based on how the state legislature is moving, the pace at which anything gets considered or moved on there, we will have an answer here in Pittsburgh first. I feel safe saying, because we should have an answer by the end of today.
Yep. And not for nothing, ballot questions, because they're difficult to understand. And if you read this on its face, it's not clear why there would be any hesitation about it. I do think this will pass. I absolutely do. Most ballot measures do get a yes vote. Not always, but more often than not. And I think that comes down to voter education to some extent. So I hope this is helpful for somebody. If you would like to be able to read it after you have listened to it, we're going to post on Instagram kind of an explainer very similar to this, so you can look at that. We'll put a link in our show notes. But happy Election Day to all. Please go out and vote. Go do it.
May Fred Rogers win.
Yeah, go Fred. That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. You can support us by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. All the details are at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow with more from around the city. We'll talk to you soon. You're almost there. Land the plane.